Minasan, konnichiwa, Vegan desu. Hey guys, Regan here, day 5 of my daily vlog for the 7 days. I've got work again this morning and I start in a couple hours, so I don't have a lot of time. But I'm gonna go out and get some coffee, and so instead of riding my bike, I thought I'd walk with the camera, and today I thought I'd talk about learning Japanese. I'm definitely no expert on Japanese, but I thought I'd be able to share some tools and resources and just a bit about what I've learned, and maybe it can help people who are just getting started. I've got 1 hour to go get some coffee before I have to come home and iron my shirts. I did my washing yesterday. I realized I've been focusing too much on making these videos. I forgot to wash all my clothes and do my general household chores. So my room's a lot dirtier since day 1. So this is my neighborhood. The coffee shop's about a kilometer away. It'd be a lot easier by bicycle, but it's too hard to hold a camera. So I started learning Japanese about 1.5 years ago. My level's not fantastic, but it's definitely enough to live in Japan and also have basic conversation with people. So I first started learning Japanese through a tutor. Actually, I went to a website, I think. I started trying to learn online, which was just rubbish. One of the best things I did to start with was to go get a tutor. I think I paid about 20 bucks an hour. I was just going once a week, and then eventually I went to twice a week because I wanted to learn a bit faster. And I think having a tutor, if you've got money to do it, it was only $20 a lesson, even just once a week, to be taught from someone rather than from books, because they can help you understand a lot better. If you can't understand what's being written in a textbook, there's no other way to be put it. You've only got what's written there. Whereas if you're working with someone, if you're not understanding it, they can change their angle, things like that. I had a tutor then, I didn't for a while. My tutor went back to Japan. So there was a few months where I didn't have a tutor. The thing I love most was being held accountable. So if you're having a textbook or you're self-studying, I got a 7-Eleven just in there. That's where I pay my bills each week. When I study by myself, if I get lazy and maybe exhausted from language learning, then I might take a couple of days off and it'll turn into a week and I won't study properly for a while. But if you've got a tutor or someone you have to report to weekly, because if you go to class and you haven't learned or you haven't done the homework, it makes you feel bad enough to kickstart and get back into it again. The next thing I did was enroll in universities. I was studying at a university just doing the Japanese subjects when I first started. It was beginner level. I found that pretty helpful in direction and just more motivation to keep on track of what to learn next. I hadn't been living in Japan at this point. I think once I started uni, I came over to Japan. It was pretty cool for me. The uni I was studying at was a correspondence university, so I actually was able to sign up and I was able to do the classes online while studying in Japan. So I was doing my homestay at that point, and twice a week I'd watch lectures online, and then I'd be able to send all my assignments over email, and you can actually do the exams at the end of the semester in Japan as well. So that's definitely an option. If you're an Australian, I went through UNE at the Armidale University. So doing the university correspondence I actually really enjoyed, because I was doing the homestay at the moment. For a beginner level, I found it really useful. What I was learning was what I sort of immediately needed to know, grammar, keywords and things like that. By the second year though, I found it to be completely irrelevant. It was the beginning of this year. I was living in Japan, studying, working here in the Eikaiwa, and I was wasting time on university assignments. The grammar and the vocabulary just wasn't applicable to what I wanted to use in everyday life. So I think university will give you a good scope of everything, but I think self-study gives you a better focus on becoming good at what you need to become good at. So for anyone thinking about going to uni to learn Japanese, I don't think it does any harm, but it's definitely not necessary. Probably the biggest thing I got from studying uni was from my first year lecturer. She said in one of the very first classes, she said, learning a language isn't difficult, it's all about time on task. And that's something that stuck with me since the beginning, and I found it to be very true. The times that my Japanese improved the most has been when I've been able to put more time into it. Okay guys, I'm back home now. I've finished my coffee, and those of you that have been watching the other daily vlogs, my letterbox is a lot cleaner today. I'm home now and I've got to go get ready for school. I think I've got some spare time at work today. So when I get to work, I'll list some really cool resources that I've used to learn Japanese as well. But for now, it's shower time. If you watched yesterday's video, these are my pajamas I wore to the supermarket last night. I need to have a shower. In summer in Japan, I usually, if I'm just grabbing coffee or something, I won't bother showering before I get out, because you come back and you just got to shower again. It's so muggy here. Okay, I've got to go get ready for work, and I'll talk about resources in a second. Hey guys, I'm not at school. It is currently midnight. This was a fail on the daily blog front. So I wanted to talk about Japanese resources more in depth, but unfortunately I've run out of time. For the sake of this video, I do want to give you some resources. So anyone learning Japanese, I'll just do a very quick run through of the different resources I use. I'll have to make another video, I'm sorry, more in depth on language learning in Japanese specifically. My number one tool that I use is Anki, and Anki is an app which you can get on iPhone and computer. It's an SRS memory app. It's really good for remembering vocabulary. This is an example of it here. So what you do is you put your word in Japanese and then the English translation, and it's got these options down the bottom, and depending on how well you remember it, you can select. If you completely forgot it, you go back to square zero pretty much. Whereas the easier it is to recall, the less often you need to be reminded. And I'll go more in depth in that in my next video. But if you haven't heard of it already, chuck Anki into Google, download the app. For iPhone, it's $25. It's quite expensive. Having said that, it's one of the most useful tools I've used. But if you're using Android or you're just using it on your computer, it's completely free to download as well. They've also got a pre-made deck that you can download from AnkiWeb, their website, which has the core 2000 Japanese words with audio and pictures, which I found really helpful. Okay, the second one, and this one I absolutely love, is called iknow.jp. Again, it's for learning vocabulary. It's a Japanese website, but it's for learners of multiple different languages. And what you can do is you can find the Japanese core 6000. So this is the most frequently used words in the Japanese vocabulary. Now, if you go through the website and find this core 6000, you'll find that it has not only the word, but how it's used in a sentence as well, and often with two examples. It's got the English translation, it's got it written in hiragana, and also kanji as well. To use the apps on the website, you have to pay, I think it's about $6 or $7 a month. But if you go into the options for the core 6000, you can download the individual audio files by right-clicking saving as of the word itself or the word being used in its sentence. Now, what I did, I downloaded all 6000 audio files, imported them into iTunes, copied and pasted the kanji translation as the song name, and I've got 3 playlists: all vocabulary, new vocabulary, and known vocabulary. And I'll cycle through these, and I think it's a great way to have listening practice. You can do it on the train, you can do it anywhere. You basically just take your iPod with you, and it's a really good way for constant exposure to either new words you want to review, or just Japanese language in general. The downside is it took me about 20 hours in total to download all 6000 files. But what you can do is simply go to the core 6000, search which words you're looking for and you want to be exposed to, download the audio file, and just download them one by one into iTunes as you need them. Another downside is it's quite boring. It's not dialogue, it's one sentence at a time. So it's quite good for just having your earphones in if you're just chilling out and doing nothing. As far as interesting content goes, it's really not that great. And so my next resource is podcasts. Along with the core 6000 I've been using, I also throw podcasts and also textbook CDs of learning Japanese and throw them on my iPod, and you can just listen to them anywhere. I think they're a really great thing, even if you're not up to the level of being able to understand the podcast. I listen to podcasts that are well outside of my range, vocabulary and grammar-wise, but I find that I'm still being exposed to a lot of the language, as well as you're being exposed to words that you have heard before, but in a different context. So another thing I have on the iPod is the CDs from my old university textbook, just the dialogue files. I also put into a separate playlist called Dialogue, and actually when I come across any audio file that's Japanese dialogue, I'll add it into that playlist too, and I'll just throw them on shuffle so that I'm not always knowing what's coming up. It's a great way to hear vocabulary and also grammar in a range of contexts too. Okay, next resource, which I think is a very big factor, is you got to have native speakers. You got to either have friends or family that are Japanese. You need to be able to use the Japanese as well as listen to it in a personal context as well. And so that's why I've got 2 resources that I'll recommend for finding native speakers in Japanese. The first one is a website called italki.com, and so italki is really cool. You can make a free account, and what it allows you to do, it allows you to write a diary or input text of whatever you want, and then native speakers will actually correct your work. It's completely free, and in return you can help them by fixing up their English entries as well. I've met a fair few Japanese people on that, and usually it starts off on italki, and then we exchange details to doing Skype calls as well, which is fantastic because you're getting reading and writing practice as well as speaking and listening as well. It's really quite good, I've found, to separate, distinct them completely, where you set aside a time just for Japanese and then in return set aside a time just for English for them as well. Okay, the second app that I'd recommend is called HelloTalk, and it's a language exchange instant messaging app, but same again, it's easy to make friends there and then just get Skype details if you also want to be doing video calls or conversation as well. This app I found was the most effective for finding exchange partners. Too effective in that I had 30 people add me on the first day, and in the end I had so many people contacting me, Japanese people wanting to exchange languages, that I just deleted the app completely. I was getting constant messages and constant friend requests. One of the big reasons this was because it works off a GPS, so it finds people in your area. So I downloaded this app when I was in Japan. As soon as I logged in, it alerted a whole ton of Japanese people in the area that a native English speaker was round about where they were as well. So it was effective, but a little bit too effective. I have a lot of people message me asking me how to find language exchange partners. I definitely think it's a really good one to go with. One of the last resources I want to mention is people message me about how to learn kanji. I do enjoy learning the kanji, but I really lost motivation for it in that I don't read or write very much, and so it really has taken a backseat in the past sort of 6 months. But when I am going for it, I use my Anki deck, and as you can see here, I have this little GIF that does the kanji, and I found this to be really useful. It's off a website called Noben, and it has all these little GIF files of the kanji. You can make an Anki deck and just throw it in, and I've divided these up into grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 kanji sets, just so that I can tackle them in pieces rather than having this abundance of kanji feeling like it's drowning me. But basically the same thing, so I've got the kanji, the 2 types of readings there, and also the English meaning too. And so this is good for learning the kanji, but you really need to put it into practice with reading and writing and getting a use for how the kanji connect together. For those, instant messaging apps as well as handwriting a diary or something like that is really handy for putting the kanji into action. If you're using the Anki deck, it's really quite good to learn the kanji. With anything, you also want to be using it as well. So if you can tie it into the other resources, it'll be much more effective. Okay, so these are the resources that I wanted to let you know about. And now, which I think is much more important, is the application of those resources. And what I mean by that is you can have all the resources in the world, but if you're not using them properly and you're not putting the time into it, you won't go anywhere with it. And just like my first university lecturer said, language learning isn't difficult, it's all about time on task. And it's true, language learning doesn't have to be difficult, but it does take a lot of time. And I've found my Japanese has always increased the most the more time I've been able to put into it. I can have all the best resources I want, but if I'm only putting in 30 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, it's not going to be as effective as being surrounded by Japanese all the time. And so there's 3 recommendations I have for methods for learning Japanese. The first one is a guy called Fluent in 3 Months. His name is Benny Lewis. He's got a website, fluentin3months.com. He talks about using the language from day one, not using English, and only working in the language that you want to learn. And he's just quite inspirational with the energy that he puts into these language learning. So check out him. He's got really cool articles on his website and some videos and tips on how to language learn. The second one I'd like to recommend is Link.com. It's by a guy called Steve Kaufman, I think his name's pronounced. He's Canadian, and his method is all about input, so listening. And that's where I got the idea for using the iPad, and I've got to say it really helps. Where I'd been focusing on just learning vocabulary and trying to speak, I hadn't been putting too much focus on listening. But since going to his website, he's got a free account and paid accounts that you can use. I've only ever used a free account. That was all I ever really needed. Native speakers in the language, make up dialogues, which you can actually download the audio files from. So same thing, it's on my dialogue playlist, and it'll find entries that are most suited to you depending on the vocabulary that you know. And if anything, it's just been great to download those audio files. It actually lets you read while you listen, and so it's a great way to get multiple inputs at the same time. Whereas Benny Lewis was all about talking and using the language, Steve has a different approach where he recommends listening as much as you can. And to be honest, I think by combining the two, it's even better. And the third one I want to recommend is a website called All Japanese All the Time. He talks about, you've probably heard it before in language learning, immersion. Really surrounding yourself with everything Japanese, cutting out English, and that's what a big part of Benny Lewis's method is as well. He was saying, even on your computer, switch it to kanji, cut out English completely, only watch Japanese TV shows, only read Japanese books, use Japanese textbooks to learn Japanese, not the English textbooks to learn Japanese. From what I saw, it sounds like he just completely made a bubble for himself of Japanese, but I really enjoyed reading the articles, and his explanation of all the methods he used I found was really useful. So I'd recommend checking that one out as well. And so I really like the combination of the three, of Japanese immersion, using the language as much as you can, listening to the language as much as you can, and basically surrounding yourself in Japanese. Combined with the resources that I just told you about, I think it's very easy. Even if you're not in Japan, I think you've got a really good chance of leveling up your Japanese. Okay, one more that I've had a couple of comments about, and I always see sort of people arguing about this too, is the use of anime for studying. Some people say, you know, don't do it, it's useless. Others say, I found it really helpful. I think it sits right in the middle. I don't think that you're going to learn Japanese just from anime. I wouldn't use it as a study tool. I have used anime in the past, or actually I prefer dramas. I've used Japanese dramas. At the end of the day, if you're stuffed and you don't feel like studying, you may not want to open a book, or your brain is just completely exhausted from constantly using this other language, but you still want to get some Japanese practice in. Watching anime in Japanese or Japanese drama or any TV show in Japanese is going to be better than nothing. I haven't found it greatly useful for learning new content, but a couple of the Japanese dramas I've watched, I've rewatched seasons as I've gotten a little bit better at Japanese. Really enjoyed going back to them and realizing that I understand a little bit more each time. So if you're wanting to just incorporate anime into your study or Japanese drama, I say absolutely go for it. I think it's fantastic. If you are just relaxing, it's a great way just to be surrounded by Japanese, or even better, the way I find it more useful, to have this playing in the background while I'm studying, because it makes it more enjoyable. And if you're going to get distracted from your study, it may as well be from something in Japanese. I'm sure people are wondering which ones I've used. The website Crunchyroll, sorry, I forgot. A good way to watch drama and anime from is called Crunchyroll.com. You can get a free account. It has ads while they play, or you can pay for a subscription to get the ads removed. But the ones I was watching when I was a kid, I used to watch Dragon Ball, Digimon, and Pokemon. And so I got all three of those in Japanese. The only one I really kept watching was Dragon Ball. Otherwise, the dramas that I watched, my favorite one was called The Taremehiro. I also watched Akumu-chan, Town Dr. Jumbo, and the Japanese title I've forgotten. Jumbo Sensei. I forgot. Nihonjin no Shironai Nihongo, which is Japanese that Japanese people don't even know. It was just an interesting series. None of this is quality viewing, by the way. If you're actually wanting decent television, you're not going to find it from what I watch. It was all rubbish, but it was entertaining and good to listen to Japanese. And I think they're the main ones. I forgot, but if I remember, I'll put them down in the comments as well. Oh, one more that I really liked was Kazoku Game. That one I actually thought was a really good show as well. And I ended up watching it with English subtitles because I really wanted to know the story that I wasn't understanding as well. And that's another big thing. I don't recommend watching them with English subtitles. If you're serious about learning Japanese, I think they're a massive distraction from being able to focus listening on completely in Japanese. Some people will say it's easier once you read the English subtitles. Oh wait, yeah, no, I did understand that. I think it's better to wipe them off completely. It's sort of like when you go into the shopping center and trying to find a car park, you turn the radio down to focus on looking around. Just having that image there of the English subtitles, even if you're not deliberately looking at them, you will subconsciously gaze to them, and I think it can distract greatly from focusing your listening on the Japanese that's coming out. Okay guys, that's the end of my Friday vlog, which is actually pulled over into Saturday morning. I hope you guys found some of that useful. I'm sure it'll apply more to beginner learners than to intermediate or advanced learners, but they're just a couple of tools that I found really useful, and I wish I had have been given when I first started Japanese. Like I said, I wish I had the time to make a more in-depth video. This week's videos is really just touching on a lot of things. I'll put a link towards the video that I'll make in the future for Japanese resources, and I'll go into more depth of each of those resources, how I use them, and how effective each one of them are. Hopefully that's enough to just get people started in where to look and giving you some direction. Use them. You may like them, you may don't. I don't recommend one over the other. The only thing I do recommend is find what you enjoy and what works for you and keep at it. Language learning is personal. Everyone learns a different way. Everyone has different interests. Find how to incorporate Japanese into something you love doing, and I think it'll go a lot further towards motivating you as well. Otherwise guys, it's 12:30. I've got some editing to do. Hope you found that helpful. Thanks for watching guys. This weekend, Saturday, Sunday, I've finished work for the week. I'll have some more time to make these videos. I'm going to be out and about on Sunday. I'm going to be getting out of the city. We're going to go to the beach, so I'll show you a bit more traveling outside of the cities of Japan as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So guys, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. I'll work towards making a more in-depth video, which I'll put the link to here. So if you have anything you want to know or any further questions of what I've talked about today, please let me know so I can combine it all together. Otherwise, thanks for watching guys. Arigatou gozaimasu. Ja, mata ne.